And we're recording.
All right. So Ray, it's been a long time coming. About 2 weeks now, we've been trying to set something up, a debate or so, and things fell through. We won't mention that. But we're here now, and it's the day before the election. Tensions are running high. I'm feeling anxiety, and I guess I'm like I'm an ANCAP, an anarcho-capitalist. I probably won't vote for anybody. And I'm still nervous because this is kind of like a big election, you know?
Literally shaking.
Yeah, literally shaking. But when we let's get into this. What are you about, Ray? And what have you been doing for the last 4 years?
Sure. So I got into politics right around 2014, 2015. I knew the election was coming up in 2016, and I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative, and I immediately jumped on the train, the Ted Cruz train. That was in the beginning. And I was a big Ted Cruz guy. And I thought that Donald Trump was doing this for his own self-interest. I thought he was building his brand bigger than it already was. And when I started to listen to him and watch him in the debates, I thought he was a bit crazy. But I felt what he was saying was a message that we haven't heard before intellectually and politically, because he was speaking to us on our level. He was speaking to people the way we normally go out and speak to people. And I'm in the construction industry, and this is the way that we talk to each other. He doesn't use big words. He doesn't have a fancy tone that gets people calm. He just speaks. He's from like a similar industry. So, maybe right at the Iowa caucus, I jumped right onto the Trump train. It's 4 years later, and I'm still on the Trump train. Just a little bit of background about myself. I got so into politics that I thought it'd be a fun idea to run for public office. And I did that in 2017. I ran for New York City Council in my district. It's Council District 47. It encompasses Gravesend, where I'm from, Bensonhurst, Coney Island, and Seagate. I ran as a Republican conservative up against a really powerhouse incumbent, a good guy, good man, who I just, politically had different opinions on, and the community I thought can be manned a bit better. So I gave it a shot. I got 30% of the vote. I did not even expect to break 10%. I raised over $90,000. I received New York City matching funds, which is a great thing for first-time candidates. And I put up a fight. And I sort of feel like I energized my community a little bit. I energized a base in the community. I got a lot of people involved in the community. At the end of the day, 12,000 people voted, and 4,000 people thought, or close to 4,000 people thought that I would be a good councilman. So with that, I've remained active. I have a nonprofit organization, the Bath Beach, Bensonhurst, Gravesend Alliance. It's doing everything from the little things, turkey giveaways, Christmas tree. We just want to bring more awareness to our community and bring more people out into the community and get more people involved and to know what's going on, whether it's what sport programs are failing that need help, what's going on in your corner if you need a stoplight, little things like that. It's just bringing awareness back to the community, which I feel really doesn't happen anymore in this day and age, because it's so easy just to go on Facebook and Twitter and just, put out your frustrations and not kind of do anything about it. Letting people know that there's a problem is, the way of the world now, and actually doing something is a little bit past us. So a lot of people have jumped on. We were featured on News 12. We've been featured in many local articles. And I'm continuing that. And with that, I'm, remaining politically active. Obviously, I'm supporting Donald Trump. I'm supporting Nicole Malliotakis for Congress. I'm supporting Vito Bruno for State Senate. Mike Tanousis is in the neighboring district of Dyker Heights and Bay Ridge, supporting Mike Tanousis. These are all good law and order candidates. That's where I am on November 2nd, 2020, the day before what may be, I don't know, what they're calling a civil war. I don't think it's going to be that crazy. At the end of the day, on Wednesday, we all have to get up and go to work. And I think that's where we're going to be. I'm hoping it's not as bad as they're predicting, but this is where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A lot of businesses are boarding up.
Yeah, for the peaceful protest. What kind of policy can you affect as a councilman? Like what are the main differences between a Democrat and a Republican conservative when they're running on these local issues? Because I know like the broad federal spectrum and obviously what goes into that, but what can you really do that is different from Andrew Gurnard or whoever,
So Andrew Gennardis is a state senator. I ran up against Mark Traeger. The hottest issue, of course, this year was funding and defunding the police. You vote on a budget for the city, and in that city budget, the cops lost what they call $1 billion, pretty much. They cut the budget $1 billion. Now, I think a lot of that had to do with politicians being pressured to cut funding from the NYPD. But at the end of the day, we are in the midst of a pandemic. The city has lost revenue and money did have to get cut from budgets, whether it be the NYPD, the Department of Sanitation, NYC, EDC, any Department of, Design and Construction, any city agency pretty much got their budget cut. But that was really politicized this time around because of the unrest we saw from, the fallout of what happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and things of that nature. Pretty much just to answer your question in the short term, Danny, is they're responsible for funding of the city. All the city agencies get managed by the city council. Essentially, you're all a council and the mayor is the guy above you. So you're dealing with the mayor on that level, zoning, things of that nature. But I would say the main facet of the city council is managing and budgeting several city agencies.
Yeah, I think with social media and actually media in general being what it is, we kind of lose sight of on the local level, that's really what's important. I mean, in social media and in the media, we see the presidential election as the important election, but that's just because it affects more people.
Well, you know what? It's funny. I walk around and I campaign for local candidates, and every time I speak to someone, they're like, yeah, Trump. And I'm like, Trump's important. I get it. But, bail reform laws go through the state Senate. Funding goes through the city council. There's bills that get voted on in the assembly, and those affect you immediately.
Yes.
The city and the states govern a ton of things, and Washington, D.C. is important, but do not discount what goes on in local politics. And
I think I think that's one of the biggest issues that we're having right now, where most likely we will see some kind of civil unrest because, someone in a different state is voting against the way you would vote. Yeah. But our vote, we're competing with them, and we're going to affect their lives more than it should. I don't have anything in common with the people that live in Kentucky or I don't know, Florida. We live completely differently here, but because our government is so big now, it really does affect them. If you voted in Hillary Clinton, people lose their minds, and it shouldn't be that way. Maybe we should focus on this, the smaller stuff, because that's,
Another problem I've noticed is that when you vote in these local elections, sometimes the candidates just go unopposed. Is that something you see?
See it all the time. And, I put out on my social media who I'm supporting, and, early voting started last Saturday, and I get a ton of messages like, hey, I didn't see your candidate on the ballot. I just saw all Democrats. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you live in a district where there is no Republican opposing the Democrat. And at the end of the day, when they go unopposed, they're going to win. If you don't like it,
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you campaigned or not. If you're the only one, then you're going to win. Yeah.
And there's a ton of that. In New York. There's a ton of strongholds, and we are in New York, and there's a ton of Democratic strongholds. And I did an interview recently with Kings County Politics, and we talked about the possibility of New York ever becoming a purple state. And they were like, well, what are the benefits of a two-party state? And I'm like, checks and balances. Yeah. Well, it's called a pendulum. It swings hard one way, and then boom, it comes back hard the other way. And that's when you get, some civil unrest. And depending on how hard it swings back is where you have your conflicts.
I wonder, after all this has happened now with Cuomo and I mean, just the train wreck that de Blasio has been, if the New York people will wake up or at least try something different. But I don't have much faith in people. Now I want to ask you a question, and it's like, I guess it's kind of, I want to try to pin you a little bit here with the Trump thing. And I'm not sympathetic to the left, like, at all. That's why I told you I'm not a good person to run that debate. But defunding the police thing, it sort of appeals to me in a way. Like right now, the church that I attend, where I met my wife and we got married, they're being closed down. They're in a red zone. and there's like strict regulations. They're threatening them with $15,000 fines if they let anybody in the church. And I say, you know, the police are the ones that are gonna enforce this kind of stuff. Yeah. It's not Cuomo. He's gonna send his people. Politicians are just assholes with bad ideas, but the police are the ones who kind of you know, get what they want.
And they even empowered other city agencies, enforcement branches to crack down.
Yeah, they're making like all kinds of new whatever.
Yeah, like the sanitation police and park police. Yeah.
Now we do need law and order, and I agree 100% with that. But at what point would it be maybe a good idea to put some pressure on the police and say, hey, listen, we pay your salary and your pensions. You should serve us, not this guy that's he's looking for an AG job and then a presidential run later on. So he's going to just carry out whatever the campaign says. So what do you think about that? I mean,
listen, I would love for the cops to stand up and probably do what they want to do, which is let us open up, right? But we have to remember that cops don't make the laws, they enforce the laws. So there are people who are telling them what to do, how to do it. At the end of the day, you know, you have a job, and that's your livelihood, that's your pension, that's the future of your family. And to go out and get caught from doing that is going to have severe repercussions, because there are things in place, there are executive orders in place, and there isn't listen, as a community advocate, I get texts and calls every day from friends of mine with restaurants. And I have a friend of mine who is in a red zone by 2.5 blocks. And every day he strolls down the street and he takes a picture of another, cafe, and they have people inside of it eating, and he's red and they're yellow. It'd be great for him just for a cop to walk in and say, don't worry about it, buddy, conduct your business, we get it. But there is an executive order out there, and it's in effect until tomorrow, believe it or not. The executive order went until election day from
Tremendous. Curious. See, I agree with everything you're saying. It's just like we're walking this line of just following orders. You know, the Nuremberg trial. I know it's unfair to even.
You know what? It is. It is a little unfair, but also, you know, there is an executive order, whether it's constitutional or not. You know, that's not for them to decide.
Right.
But also, every individual cop is not shadowed every day by their lieutenant, by the chiefs. They have discretion, so they can choose whether or not to walk into a business and shut it down, whether or not to give them $1,000 fine. You know, what
I'm curious to see how many. We'll never know this, but I'm sure there are cops who have given warnings and have had people plead with them. You know,
that's true.
You know, I think that most cops understand, and you know, cops have favorite restaurants too, and cafes and stuff like that. And I'm sure they've been in situations where they want to walk in and get a cup of coffee from somebody that they've known for 5 to 10 years, but they can't. And getting caught and knowing what the repercussions are is pretty severe. And it's probably, listen, if I was in their shoes, I hate to say it, I'm an open up guy. I said open up. 15 days to flatten the curve turned to 300 days to flatten the curve, and we don't know when there's an end in sight. And the government has control right now, and it's a very scary concept, because
it really is.
At what point do you give it back?
Yeah, I've kind of been, I don't know if you've seen on my Facebook, but I've been a little bit combatant with my police friends, because these are the people I can talk to, and I don't know what the answer is, but maybe if we put pressure on our peers, like, hey, listen, this isn't cool. They know it's not cool. They don't like these orders. I know that, but there's a big issue. Anyway, let's I want to move on to maybe the next topic here, because like I said before, we had a debate going on, and I wrote a whole bunch of questions. I mean, I kind of went crazy writing all this stuff, so I don't want it to go to waste.
You went a beautiful mind with all that stuff too. You got like the handwritten notes, you got the papers. Yeah, I like that. I
had a chalkboard. It's just like flipped upside down, just writing.
Yeah, strings attached by pins.
Yeah.
I wanted to start off with the censorship, like online text censorship, and I think I had like 2 questions about this, but there was so what, if any, action should Trump take against censorship, big tech, what should conservatives, what should conservatives who have been targeted feel about his inaction so far? I mean, Twitter has, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like the Democrats have sort of like infiltrated and hijacked control of social media and media in general and all these big companies, and they're not afraid to edit websites and Wikipedia pages, everything. They've injected politics into every single aspect of life. And it's, I talk to friends and they're like, "You're still watching the NFL?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still watching the NFL," and it kind of sucks, but like, yeah, I am. I'm watching the NFL. I love basketball. I'm a huge LeBron guy. I watch the NBA. I watch baseball, but they've injected it into every aspect of life, and it sucks. But getting back to your question, I think the U.S. needs a massive reform in technology. Organizations like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they've become the public square essentially, right? And you go back and think about it. Martin Luther King posted his 95 Thesis. He nailed it to a church door. And I know we're not even near what the 95 Thesis means to people, but Twitter, Facebook, that's sort of people's equivalent. It's their voice. It's people who are shy in person. They get the opportunity to speak. And when you see things like the New York Post, it's one of the oldest papers we have in this country. They post an article about Hunter Biden. And there was a laptop and it was investigated and it's there and it's real. And
truer than the P-tape.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. A fake dossier made up by a campaign to spot craziness, but it's accurate. It's true. It's there. And their account was frozen. Why are you stopping people from understanding that information? That's why I think that these entities, and I'm for small government, but I think they need to be regulated by the government to ensure that people actually have freedom of speech.
That's a double-edged sword, because that's under the assumption that there will never be another Democratic president again, or at least a progressive president, which tomorrow we could have one, Kamala Harris. Very dangerous. Yeah,
I think Joe Biden's the candidate, but
I don't think so.
I'm not sure. That's not what I've been reading.
That's not what he said. He said a Harris-Biden administration. So I've never, Trump loves Mike Pence, but I've never heard him say a Pence-Trump administration.
Yeah, it's strange. So a follow-up to that question, or kind of like a two-parter, is, there's been riots, there's been lockdowns. Like I said, my church is locked down. And, for the dictator that they claim that Trump is, literally Hitler, his inaction has been stunning. If you believe what they say. He's done nothing. He says it's available. He's asked the mayor of Portland, that Wheeler, I think his name is, the National Guard's ready. We'll send him in. You give me the call. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of
it's the right move.
Really, it's
agreed.
It's constitutional. But there's a lot of people, conservatives and libertarians or whatever, that live in these states, and I'm victim to this stuff. What would you say to them that they do feel disenfranchised by this, like his inaction, and they might not understand that? But what would you say to them tomorrow? Why should they pull the lever for him?
For Donald Trump? Yeah. I mean, I think he's the better pick over Joe Biden. And at the end of the day, that's what you have to look out for. I'm a Trump guy, but and I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. But you got to look at the individual candidate. Joe Biden, to me, does not have a plan on anything. I've never heard of his policies on economics. I've watched 2 debates where he just combats what Trump has done, and any idea that he's had regarding things like coronavirus seems to be that Trump is on track to do. I think it's an easy sell when you say that he's been in government for 47 years, and I know I've read this a lot, and I'm sure we've all read it. But when you have 47 years to try and make impact and change, and you've gone from, everywhere from being a senator to a vice president, and you haven't really succeeded at pretty much anything, why should we depend on you to run the country? One, and why should we depend on you to run the country? And I know this is a running joke, but it's a very serious thing. He's not of well and sound mind. It's very apparent. It's very obvious. I think that at this stage in his life, he is going to be overrun by Kamala Harris. He's going to be pressured and overrun by, AOC and the minions and things of that nature. I think he's going to be, it's proven that he's already run by lobbyists and foreign entities that have infiltrated him and his family, and most importantly, his son. And I think when you look at those things, and you look at a guy like Donald Trump, who's pretty much self-funded his campaign, he hasn't raised any money from lobbyists or things of that nature. He hasn't allowed that to get into his campaign. I'm sure he has his faults, and I'm sure I can name plenty as a Trump supporter. I'm open-minded also. I think it's an easy sell. I think that when you look at the economy the way it was, I think that when you look at what he's done with the job market, and specifically with African Americans and Latinos, he's sort of freed them from the chains of Democratic politicians over the years, Democratic policies and presidents over the years. And just because the media tries to tell you that the guy is a racist, while Joe Biden, when he's not highly medicated, has several racial undertones and things that he says, like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
These are the things that I like about Joe Biden, but go ahead.
Wow.
Entertaining, yes.
Yeah.
Besides that, it's just a
trumpet and edge of the pressure.
Yeah. I think if you didn't watch any media and you just listen to the two of them talk, there's one person who's very obviously, an overt racist, and one person who's not. And I think that Donald Trump is clearly not a racist. And I think that Joe Biden is a racist. And I know that's so crazy to say because he's a Democrat, and how could Democrats be racist? But when you look at the policies he's put in place over the last 47 years, and you listen to the things he says on the radio and things he says on the fly, he sounds and looks and smells like a racist. So,
yeah, but yeah.
After 47 years, you have to ask why now? Why should we trust you now?
And he's tried to run for president 2 times before, and he's failed.
Yeah. He's a placeholder. Nancy Pelosi was talking about the 25th Amendment recently, and they kind of try to invoke that on Trump a couple of years ago. But part of my conspiracy brain starts to go, oh no, that's not for Trump. This is for Joe Biden, specific. He's a placeholder, in my opinion. I don't know.
100%. They wanted Kamala. I think they wanted. I feel like the Democrats tried somebody out each month to make him the darling of the party. They tried with Kamala in the beginning. It failed. They tried with Pete Buttigieg. It failed. They tried with Cory Booker. And I thought that in the beginning, I thought Cory Booker would be the guy. They tried with Cory Booker. It failed miserably. And it was like, do we let Bernie have this thing and get crushed, or do we try to save face with Biden and put Kamala into this? And Elizabeth Warren staying in the race took votes away from Bernie specifically to propel Joe Biden into, where he is right now.
Yeah,
I think you say.
Go ahead, Pat.
No, you say they tried. You mean the media, right?
No, I mean the DNC, the media, Facebook, Twitter, press. Instagram, everything.
Yeah, basically they're all one.
Yes, they're all the same thing. Yeah, they certainly did try. Tulsi ended Kamala Harris, and then they resurrected her, which is real. Do you
Loved her? Would have been a decision for me. Honestly, if she was a Democratic candidate, I would have voted for Trump. But I would have given it thought, being that she's pretty based,
Yeah, she's awful on economics, but I do like her.
Agreed.
I do like her in general. Go ahead, Matt.
I think the DNC does its best to destroy anybody that's even slightly authentic.
Yeah, if it's not a Biden or Clinton, it seems that they will literally destroy your life.
Yeah, when you're out there canvassing and you're talking to we're regular people, but I feel like I think a little differently from people. Do you think that they're really susceptible to somebody like a Cory Booker? Because when I hear that guy talk, he comes off as overtly lizard to me. It's like I'm waiting for the mask to fall off of his face. It's just, do you think people buy into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean they bought into Obama. He sounded fantastic for 8 years. When you listen to when you don't know too much about policy, and when you're from states and classes of people that are affected by his policies, you think he's fantastic. But,
yeah, the word you use is presidential. He's very presidential. He's very he talks good.
Yeah,
he does. He's a great orator. This actually there's a question that I had here for you, and I'll just kind of loosely throw it. But one of my biggest criticisms about Obama, since people, he's the Black Jesus to a lot of people, and this is whatever. This is Danny talking. But the guy dropped, thousands of bombs, drone bombs on the Middle East, from Somalia to Afghanistan. And he killed, I think it was a statistic, maybe 9 out of the 10 people he killed were not the intended target. And this is just awful. because
Right.
we have Black Lives Matter rallies right now going on, but what about the brown people in the Middle East? Now, Trump in 2018, I believe, he dropped way more drone bombs than Obama. And that statistic came out, and he passed an executive order also later that year that will not disclose how many deaths occurred from those bombs. And so we don't even know. This is something that really has me on the fence about Trump, because this kind of, I'm a fan of Ron Paul, and I believe in the blowback, and this is going to come back to us eventually. This is awful what we're doing. What would you say to someone like me about that?
Well, I think that over the years, the Democrats have proved that they are the party of war. They're the party of deaths, of lives lost, and they want to protect the borders of other countries, but they're okay with leaving ours open. And, you know, under several Democratic administrations, our country is the world police, and we've died for oil. Our troops have lost their lives for oil. And under the current administration, I feel like we protect our allies and we actually get paid for it. And at the same time, we're working towards protecting our own border. And Trump says it, and I agree with it. And it's a philosophy now that I think a lot of people will make their number one reason why they're going to vote for Trump. And it's, without a border, we don't have a country. And I feel like for the first time in a long time, we finally have a country.
Yeah, that hasn't come up in a long time either. I kind of wanted to touch on that, like his immigration. That was very strong in 2016. People loved that, build the wall. And now he says we're going to finish the wall. I don't know. I'm not keeping track on the progress of it, but why do you think he strayed away from that message? You think that's not resonating with his base, or, you know?
He talks about it once in a while. He says, we're building the wall. The wall's almost finished. He says stuff like that.
I mean, he is building the wall. He is building the wall, but I think it's something that when you're in that southern border, when you're in those states, you actually see progress. And I think there is other things to build on. I mean, I think that he would have focused more on border. Also, if he stopped talking about what he's going to do with border security and more stuff, I feel like people will just say because he failed over the last 4 years. I just don't think that's true. Also, we have a global pandemic going on. We have an economy to rebuild that was thriving and then all of a sudden shot down within the last 8 months. So there are issues that are heightened and more important. And I think right now it's getting rid of the pandemic and also rebuilding our economy. I think those are two issues that are hitting home. When you look at the unemployment numbers, you have to hit home on that. You have to hit on the fact that there is job growth. We have to hit on the fact that GDP in the third quarter increased 33.3%, which is one of the highest growths in our history during a global pandemic. So I think that if there isn't a global pandemic and if the job market was stabilized to where it was 8 months ago, that we are focusing a little bit more on immigration. But I think those points are okay, and we need to focus on what's really more important right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the economy is very important, and we had texted back and forth about this. Trump
real quick, Zoom just sent me a thing that they're not limiting us to 40 minutes.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it said
We
the
got a
host is
gift.
upgraded. Yeah.
It's a huge mistake on their part.
Yeah, Zoom must be owned by conservatives that I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure it's
maybe.
owned by China, but that's.
We know what they're going for now.
Well, our country's owned by China, so pretty soon it will be.
Tomorrow it might be.
China.
The economy. Another huge criticism that I know Patrick shares of mine about Trump, and I'll put an asterisk here, but Patrick, he's an early. Is it okay for me to say it?
Yeah.
He's an early voter.
I voted.
Go ahead, Pat.
I voted for Trump. Hey.
He pulled the lever. I'm still on the fence.
All right.
We're Libertarian Party members, but I won't touch that candidate. She's awful. Anyway, so
there was a time where I was considering it.
Really?
In the beginning, I was considering it.
Big fan of Austin Peterson back in 2016. I had spoken.
Oh, he's great. I'm a fan of him now.
He's the best.
Yeah. I spoke to him a couple times when I ran for. I was planning on running for the assembly this year in 2020, believe it or not, and thank God I didn't, because with coronavirus, I would have failed miserably. And I just turned 30. I would have lost 2 elections before the age of 30. But I interviewed with the Libertarians. I think they have a very interesting philosophy on a national level. It's kind of a cool thing, but locally it just wouldn't really garner too much support. I think they're headed in the right direction, and I think that they're going to get, in the gubernatorial, they'll get the 50,000 votes to stay on the ballot. But I'm not mad at y'all, is what I'm trying to say. I like your theories. I like it. I like hearing other viewpoints that aren't so far left. You guys sort of steer me back to the middle sometimes. So I'm a fan.
Austin Peterson he's an interesting character. He's taking a lot of fire right now from the big L libertarians, the ones who are like straight from the party, because he's supporting Trump. Yeah. And you know what? I agree with him with a lot of the things he's saying. Like right now, Jorgensen is not going to win, and the choice is between Trump and Biden. And he does make a good case. But I supported him in his I think was it his presidential run, or maybe he ran for Senate in 2018 or whatever. I bought his shirt and all that.
Yeah, he ran for. I think he ran for Senate. I know he tried running for president in 2016, but failed.
Yeah, he lost to Gary Johnson, and he lost to Hawkins. What's that guy's name? Whatever.
Howie Hawkins is the green guy.
No, he's another young guy. Anyway,
and then Gary Johnson lost to Aleppo, but.
the Libertarian Party consistently runs just not awful candidates, but people who really can't hold water. Like we were hoping someone else won the nomination, and this lady won. And one of the first things she said was, "It's not enough to be not racist. We must be actively anti-racist. # Black Lives Matter."
Yeah, using all the rhetoric and everything.
Yeah, so she played to the left, and they're gonna get less than 5% this time. Where Austin Peterson is a libertarian who plays to the right, and I see you're sympathetic towards his message, and he's a sharp dude.
Yeah, he got a lot of heat recently for that tweet where he said Ron Paul libertarians are for Trump.
Prefer Trump. They said they prefer
Trump.
And he's correct.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's correct.
He's right.
I mean, right-leaning usually means they're more constitutional, I think.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Yeah, more conservative at heart. I guess I'm conservative at heart. But anyway, Trump put his name on a bunch of checks, $1,200 checks that ran out to us, and another huge stimulus. I believe it was $2 trillion. And then by the time all the federal expenditures came in, they say that it's around $6 trillion of just straight up printed money printer go brr. And they're talking about doing it again, $1.8 trillion. But Nancy Pelosi and him, they can't just quite agree on how much money they want to counterfeit. And I see conservatives calling for it. I see liberals calling for it. And I understand people are in pain, people are out of work, but this is something that is a cardinal sin. George Floyd, that interaction with him happened, one, because he was on drugs, but I think they arrested him for a counterfeit 20. At the same time, the Federal Reserve printed $2 trillion. We can't even imagine $2 trillion. It's insane. I can't imagine, what would I do with $100 million? $2 trillion is something that people just cannot put into their brain, but it's a number that we just do.
I'll find something to do with it.
100 mil, easy.
Yeah. I'm sure I will. But the point is, it's not fiscally conservative. And I don't know where some of the fiscal conservatives stand with Trump on this. How do you write this off?
So it's worth mentioning that Obama doubled the national debt from the previous 43 presidents.
Which is why I hate him.
Right. People don't know that. With regards to your question, I'll ask you a follow-up question. I mean, how much is the earth worth? Who do we owe the money to? Who controls the banks, and how are they living while our citizens suffer? I mean, these are all pretty much questions that, and I get where you're coming from, Danny, but these are questions that you got to ask when it comes from just a stimulus, just to get things going. Sometimes I feel like the national debt is almost irrelevant because other countries are also in massive debt. At the end of the day, like, that's why I asked, like, who exactly do we owe this money to? And I get that later on in life, there will be people who have to pay for this, but as long as other countries are in debt also, I mean, does it really matter? I feel like a lot of people like to talk about the debt and look at the debt, but don't really know the answer of who's it going to, when are we going to owe it, how much are we going to owe it? I think that eventually the United States is going to look into monetary reform. But I mean, there needs to be severe and significant, like, geopolitical and technology advancements and changes that happen on our money system and how we deal with things. And I mean, I get
hurt.
Yeah, it's going to hurt. I mean, this was something that wasn't predicted, right? If you asked me a year ago, you know, is everyone going to need a $1,200 check from the U.S. government? I would say no. And, you know, we got into a situation where this came and it kind of hit us really hard, really fast. And I mean, people had a job on, you know, March 1st and they didn't on March 7th. And we're in a different situation now with credit cards and the way we spend our money. And, you know, I read an article recently that like 70% of Americans couldn't deal with a $400 emergency. So there were people who took that $1,200 and, you know, it might have been to get groceries for their family for the month. It might have been just to pay back some of the rent they know they're going to owe, and they all come out of this and they're in debt. So, you know,
it also was the biggest wealth transfer in just human history, because people whose stocks were tanking, airline companies and some banks and stuff like that we did help out, they sold their stocks right before the pandemic hit and then rebought them at rock bottom. Then we paid. It's there's a level of corruption that's unexplainable to me, and it's kind of disgusting. But yeah, go ahead.
Can you really blame them for that?
No, I would have done the same thing.
Fear is a tremendous thing. People are putting money away into stocks for years and never thinking about it. And then, you know, this hits and, you know, you talk to your buddy down the street who's in a similar field than you. And he's like, dude, I got laid off. And it's like, shit, I may get laid off too. And I need capital and I need cash. I need it fast. And I need it now. And where do you go? You go into the money that you haven't thought about. I know there were definitely people who took this opportunity, you know, to make money and buy things at rock bottom.
Yeah.
But there were people who were simply acting off of fear, and you really can't blame them.
Yeah, it's a tough sit. The government created the problem. I do think they're responsible for fixing this because they're the ones who created the mandate that shut everything down. I have a theory, and it's I guess sort of biblical. I don't know if it belongs in this chat, but I'll tell it anyway.
I feel like this should be on. This is more for Rogan, but go ahead, man.
Tell us the story.
It's just a story of Cain and Abel. I think I've told you, Patrick, where one brother bargained with the future, and God saw it as a good sacrifice. And the other brother kind of just made a hasty sacrifice of an animal, and God was like, "That's whack. Get out of here." And it kind of tells that story to me. It should define our monetary policy and what the Federal Reserve has done to just completely pervert what we have with money. And then when I look around at society, and this is a big deal here too, we see a lot of degeneracy. You know, there's a lot of things that are accepted now that weren't accepted before. Conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit. Would you say so, Patrick? We kind of move the goalposts of what's acceptable, and I just see it as like a degradation of society, and I wonder what will be for my kids. You know,
it seems like conservatives are always playing catch up. They're never solidifying their positions.
Yeah. Just a few years ago, gay marriage wouldn't get touched by Obama. Now, if you oppose it, forget it. And there's some circles that are bringing up things like, I don't know, pedophilia. And I wonder sometimes, how far will we shift this goalpost, where right now we're like, all right, get the wood chipper out if you're talking about pedophilia. But they said that before about gay people. And I'm not saying I'm not taking a stance against gay people. I'm just wondering, how far are we willing to compromise? How much are conservatives willing to shift the goalpost to appease whatever society that the left is pushing next?
You know, it's funny. I think that Republicans have taken a hardline stance on some things, and we've called some things absolutely ridiculous. It's interesting you bring that up, because it's like, okay, you want to identify you're a man, you want to identify as a woman. Okay. It's a little weird, but go for it. You want to use a woman's bathroom. Hard no. And I think Republicans have always taken the stance that it's a hard no. And I think on something like that, they'll never ease up on, or as you say, like move the goalpost. I think when you look at gay marriage, the world has certainly evolved. It's more prominent. We see it we never used to see it on TV. We see it on TV now. We see it in movies. It's sort of normalized a little bit. And I think that social media and the freedom, you know, of television and stuff like that have eased that. But I feel like it's weird, man, when you even think about it, because you're right. When you talk about pedophilia, like I've seen like little articles out there that are like, this is a disorder, and people, I feel like 99.9% of people are like, this is not an effing disorder. This is a sick thing, and it should never, ever, ever be normalized. And for every, one person that says it is a disorder, I feel like there's 999 people who say there isn't. So I think on that stuff, we're safe. Like, we're going to be okay. The day we know, man,
I don't know, man.
Don't even say it, because the day pedophilia is normalized is a day that I do not want to live on this earth or have children.
It's really the vocal minority, though, that are pushing these things, and then everybody else on the left first, and then the conservatives later, just don't want to offend them, and then they just you let one thing slide, and then you let another thing slide, and then it's crazy, but it's a slippery slope.
I kind of like love Trump's comments that time when they asked him about QAnon on that one-on-one, like what was supposed to be debate and it was an interview, and they were like, he's like, yeah, I don't know anything about QAnon, which he does. He's just like, I don't know anything about QAnon, but they're against pedophilia. Yeah. I'm against pedophilia. Like, aren't you?
They asked him to denounce it, to denounce pedophilia.
Yeah, no.
And then the next day, Hunter Biden has his laptop come out with him, sleeping with children or with. It's interesting.
His niece.
That week, like 2 days later, it's like, what did the corporate press know beforehand?
Allegedly.
But, these are the kind of things that do concern me, and I don't know, like something like Social Security. Social Security was passed by FDR. It's a socialist program. It's in the name, and now Republican Trump will say, we're not going to touch your Social Security. We'll never touch it ever. But it's one of these odd perversions where we just keep on moving. And now we're the progressives of, 40, 30 years ago, and they're already doing the next thing. So it's like, should we have a party that just says just no more? Because I don't see that anywhere. We're kind of being strung along.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to say that all these rights that you're fighting for, they're human rights. We already have these rights. Stop, stop pushing it.
Yeah.
But that's what they do.
That's all they're doing.
They're progressive. They have to progress in a direction. But, I guess most of the time it's a good thing. The gay rights were a good thing. But when they just lose their mind and they keep pushing to the next level, it's just the next level of insanity.
Yeah, they're always looking for the next battle.
Yeah. We're at about like 45 minutes here, so I think maybe we should like wrap up in like 15, just so people actually watch it.
Okay,
yeah, that's true. This is not.
If you want to, I mean, we're a day out from the election. I would love to start.
Oh my goodness.
Talking about that, yeah.
Yeah, predictions. What do you think is going to happen?
I saw his predictions.
Realistically. Yeah, I saw on Facebook. Trump gets 295 electoral votes. I tell people all the time, you have to look at three things. And the three things are, number one, you look at the four swing states, the big four, Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, North Carolina. I think Trump has to win three of those, but he can only lose North Carolina if he loses one. I don't think he can afford to lose Pennsylvania. Fortunately for him, in 2016, he was most vulnerable in Pennsylvania. He won Pennsylvania by 40,000 votes. I think Joe Biden's fracking comments help him immensely. And I think he probably wins Pennsylvania by 60 to 80,000 votes. So that's scenario number one. I think Florida's a lock. I think Ohio's a lock. I think North Carolina looks good. He won that by about 180,000 votes in 2016. I don't really see the Democrats overcoming that number. Though Joe Biden, Joe Biden isn't the candidate who's going to swing that so deeply into his direction. The second thing you look at is you look at the blue wall up top. So you look at Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. I think he wins Wisconsin. He won that by 20,000 votes. I think it's close, but I think he wins Wisconsin. I see him being tight in Michigan again. He won it by 21,000 votes, but I think he wins it this time. I do not see him winning Minnesota. He lost it by about 43,000 votes. I don't see him overcoming that battle. And then the last thing you look at is the states in the Midwest. So you have Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, You look at those states. I think he wins Arizona. He won it the last time by about 90,000 votes. I think support there is good. I think he flips Nevada. I think he lost that by a very, very slim margin in 2016. But I think that the lockdowns and obviously the big industry there, being the gambling and the gaming industry, took a big hit. I think they blame that on Democrats because he has put that up front that is a Democrats' problem. I think he flips Nevada. When all that's said and done, I have him winning 295 electoral votes. I'm hoping and praying, just because of the potential of civil unrest in the country, that it's decided tomorrow. What I'm really afraid of is him winning and being up in the popular vote come tomorrow midnight, and we're like, okay, this thing is over. And then when the absentees start getting counted, the numbers start to shift a little bit towards Biden. And I think that Biden is going to win the popular vote. I just think the way things are now with the populations in California and New York, like, people always flip out that Hillary won the popular vote. Well, she won California by 9 million votes, and Trump won the rest of the U.S. by 6 million votes. And that's why the other 49 states, and that's sort of why he lost by 3 million popular votes.
Yeah, as far as those swing states are concerned, Pennsylvania, the fracking comments certainly didn't help. And then in the east side, we had the riots in Philadelphia. That didn't help. I think right before the election, the riots might have changed a couple of minds, at least, because they know that Biden is on the same side as these guys.
Right.
And Trump is for, supposedly law and order.
Yeah, the riots did hurt Biden in the polls. That's kind of why they eased up on him, I guess. They stopped giving the orders.
And then Florida, they're open. Their governor talked to scientists. He looked at data and he opened up his state. So
Miami's big red.
Think,
that's a a
lot of Cubans are red. That's what a lot of people don't realize.
Big Second Amendment state too. I mean, he won Florida by 113,000 votes, and Biden tweeted that he was going to take everybody's weapons away yesterday. So
very smart. So for me, the most important issue was the lockdown. So it's clear, it's simple. Biden wants more lockdowns, rolling lockdowns. He wants mask mandates that are unconstitutional. Trump wants to open back up. Florida's open. I think Florida will be Trump. Will be for Trump.
I got to make one quick point. Donald Trump will not win New York. It's great.
Are you sure?
I am so positive. If Donald Trump wins New York tomorrow, then everything I know about I'll delete this off the web. It doesn't need to be posted. Everything I know about politics is wrong. He lost New York by 23 points. He won 80% of the counties in 2016, but he loses where the people actually live, which is New York County, Kings County, places like that. I think that he loses New York by 16 to 18 points, which is
fewer.
Yeah, I think fewer. I think he loses New York by fewer points. I think it's about 5 points less. Yeah, he lost by about 23 points in 2016. Where this is important, and I tell everybody this that keeps asking me about Trump, Biden, I think this immensely helps down ballot candidates. I think it helps a candidate like Nicole Malliotakis. I think it helps a state Senate candidate like Vito Bruno. Danny, I know that's your district, your area. I think it helps down ballot candidates. And that is extremely, extremely important for people who want to run in the future. I think it's extremely important for the Republican Party to sort of build their party in these areas where it's, it's not 6-1 or 8-1 like Manhattan, and area pockets in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, where the registration's like 3-1 and 2.5-1. I think that's really important. So he's going to lose New York tomorrow, but I think that New York sees, quote unquote, a nice little red wave in certain election districts.
Yeah, you would hope so. I voted for Nicole and Vito personally.
Good.
I think that we need to see a change. We can't continue like this. It's not going to work. It's not working.
I mean, Max Rose cannot come off as a moderate Republican and then vote with the speaker 97% of the time, Nancy Pelosi.
What's the point? What's the point of...
You're a rubber stamp at that point, and that's not what we need in our country. That's not what we need in areas of Brooklyn, Staten Island. And I'm actually one block out of Nicole's district. My congressman is the fantastic and wonderful Jerry Nadler. But
Wow.
Nicole's a friend. Vito's a friend. I've campaigned with them. When Nicole ran for mayor, I gladly and proudly accepted her endorsement. I speak to Vito almost every day. Vito is a fantastic guy. He's a good shot in the arm for the Republican Party. He's a businessman. He's a small business owner, and he came from an industry, a nightclub industry. He kind of revived the nightclub scene in New York in the 80s when New York wasn't really too great, and a lot of people don't know that about him. They just see the bad part about owning a nightclub in the 80s, and everybody knows what it is to own a nightclub. It's a tough business, and you deal with some tough people, but Vito did it. He succeeded. He was very successful at it, and I think he's a good candidate. And I like Andrew Ganaudis as a person, personally. I can tell you that much. I have like I said, I have a nonprofit organization. He has helped me with events. Politically, I don't really agree with anything that he stands for.
Yeah, and you were also talking about Mark Traeger earlier. I'm pretty sure he's in my
shut
district.
down.
But yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, he shut
a couple
down
of
those
years
NRA
ago
meetings in Bay Ridge. I do remember that
Yeah.
specifically, and then bragged about it.
Yeah.
It's,
Those
and-
used to go on at the Knights of Columbus, and for no reason. They weren't violent. They weren't they weren't a right-wing meeting. It was what they were. I mean,
yeah, I'm a
Right.
big gun advocate, and I really do hate the restrictions that are in the state. I understand when you're in a city, you kind of, you can't get too crazy, but I don't care. I think it's more important that people are sovereign individuals, and I think a gun really does that for somebody.
yeah.
It gives you that, it evens everybody out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
As we come to the 1 hour mark, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Patrick, any burning questions for Ray?
I think we hit a lot of the most important points. I think the most important one was definitely tomorrow's election predictions and stuff.
My prediction. I don't think that we get a solid answer.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's just gonna tear at the seams of this country.
Again, with Pennsylvania, I think they said that they would accept mail-in ballots until like the 19th.
Insanity
is the date.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that the election actually comes down to Pennsylvania, and like every great thriller.
Yeah. So that's my prediction. But you know what? You've convinced me. My wife is going to the polls. She's going to vote for whoever she wants to vote for, and I'm going to go with her. And I think I'll pull the lever for Vito. You've convinced me that much. And then when we're there, we'll see. I might write in Kanye. I might pull up for Trump. But definitely,
Listen, man,
we do need. Yeah.
When I get asked that question, I say, people say like Kanye. I'm like, what about Elon Musk? Would be cool.
Yeah.
Visionary.
Why not?
Yeah. But
Ron Paul again. Why not?
Ron Paul
had a stroke a couple weeks ago. Pretty freaky. Hope he's doing okay.
He's doing good. Yeah, he's going strong.
Stroke on Friday, back to work on Monday.
Seriously.
We'd love to see it.
Yeah. But Ray, thank you for your time, man. We really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
And I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Yeah, man. Let's do it again for sure.
All right, buddy. See you later.
See you.
Thanks. Man.
Bye.